Increasing saturation in images is a great way to accentuate specific parts of the shot. And the most obvious way of increasing saturation is using the vibrance slider, which has a lesser effect on the yellows and reds, which is why people typically use that with portraits, and the saturation slider, which just attacks every single color in the image. As you can see there, it's just quite a brutal and unforgiving way of increasing saturation. It really is a blunt instrument. So there is a better way of increasing saturation in both Lightroom and Photoshop, and we're going to take a look at both of those. So what I would do with any image really, if I was increasing the saturation, is to work with the individual color channels. So I would scroll down to the HSL color controls and make sure that saturation is selected. So now when we increase one of those sliders, it's only an individual color channel that's being affected by that change rather than everything, so we just get a really garish, oversaturated result. So what I would like to do with this shot here is really boost the blues in the main part of the graffiti here, boost the yellows slightly, and then knock back the reds so that the bricks and any reds in the scene are desaturated so that the main focus is the focal point of the shot. So the first thing that I'm going to work on is the yellows. So what I've got to be careful of here is there is a lot of yellow at the top of the wall here, so I don't want to go too heavy with that. So I'm just going to take it up to +20. And then let's take a look at the blues. So I think there is quite a high proportion of aqua in here, so I can just check that by taking over. So yeah, I'm not really affecting anything but that graffiti. So I'm going to take that all the way up to +80, which is really high, but it works with this particular shot. So because we've had to go so high with the aqua, I can now see that there is also a lot of blue in there. But what I was aware of with the blue is that there is blue elsewhere, like on this black part of the wall. So I don't want to go so heavy with that one. So let's take that one to 40. So finally, to finish off, as I was saying, I want to knock out some of the reds. So I'm going to take the reds down. So let's go -60. And let's just check the purple. So there's some purple in there as well. Let's take that down to -60. And we'll do the same with the magentas as well. I don't think there's a great deal of magenta in there, but let's get it down to -60 as well. So now if I just toggle between the before and after, so that's the before and there's the after, we've got a really natural looking result by working on those individual color channels, and we've really made that graffiti pop out. So what I'm going to do is zero out all of these controls here and export into Photoshop so we can take a look at how it's done there. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and the way that we're going to work with the color channels and saturation here is to use an adjustment layer. And my menu has popped up outside of the window, but I'm going to choose a hue saturation. So by default, hue saturation opens up set to master. So that means we're working on all the color channels and we can create something really quite nasty if we want to. But as I was saying, that's the complete opposite of what we're doing. We're going for a more refined and targeted result. So what we need to do is go up to this drop-down menu that's set to master by default. And by clicking on that, you'll see that we get all of those color channels again. Not quite as many colors, but we have all the colors that we need to work on. So I'm going to go to the yellows and I'm going to take the yellows up. What you might be noticing here is that it's probably a slightly stronger effect than in Lightroom. So there's a nice yellow boost. And then if we go down to the cyans this time, so we're getting a really nice effect with the cyan. So I'm going to take that up to 45. I think that's because this is more of a cyan than an aqua, so that's why we're getting a much better result here. But to be completely honest, if I was working on the saturation, I would probably be more inclined to be doing it on the raw file in Lightroom rather than doing it in Photoshop. So let's just increase those blues as well. So I don't want to go too high. I'm going to take that to 30. So now we can work on reducing the saturation of the reds and the magentas. So let's take the reds down. So let's just take it down to -60 again, as we did in Lightroom, because I think that that is going to give us pretty much the same result, if not slightly stronger. And one thing that we didn't look at in Lightroom is that we can work with the lightness. Well, it's lightness in the adjustment layer in Photoshop, or it's luminance in Lightroom. So that's just another tab within the H cell controls. So what we can do here is if I just go down to the cyans, so by changing the lightness, I can adjust individual color channels, making that color darker or lighter. And it really depends on what you're looking for as to whether you use that or not. I think for this particular shot here, it's not working particularly well, possibly better with the blues. So that is, as I say, another option. So that is how to work more precisely with saturation in Lightroom and Photoshop.